internet gospel radio station. Streaming Praise Radio is owned and operated by Second Chance Productions. Streaming Praise Radio is streaming live at www.2ndchancepro.com. Streaming Praise Radio is broadcast in English at 33 kilobytes by second, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Streaming Praise Radio is your taste of praise.
Communicating the gospel through music and spoken word via the internet. Streaming Praise Radio. Communicating the gospel through music and spoken word via the internet.
Thank you for tuning in to Rebuilding the Black Family with Pastor Carl Lewis and myself, Clement Humphrey. Rebuilding the Black Family is dedicated to discussing principles essential to building strong, productive, and successful families. Please join the conversation by liking, following, and sharing us from our Facebook page, and that's facebook.com/Foundation for Life Church and facebook.com/SPR Live FM. Now, let's join Pastor Carl and me, Clement Humphrey. Welcome once again to Rebuilding the Black Family right here on Streaming Praise Radio. My name is Claremont, and of course, I am not the host. I am just introducing the host. So let's welcome Pastor Carl Lewis, who is the host of Rebuilding the Black Family. Welcome, sir. How are you doing today?
Great.
Awesome.
Thanks so much. Great to be here again.
Yes, and we had an exciting time last week, and this week we're hoping to have an even a more exciting time in pertaining to the things that God has called us to do and to talk about when it comes to the black family or the family in general. But it may look like somebody said to me, why did you say the black family? And I thought to myself, well, for us that look at it as seeing just the black family, there's more to the black family than you think. Black family is not just what we see as a color, but the human race, period. We just happen to pigmentation changes, and therefore we have these little things that comes up like you're white, you're black, you're Chinese, you're whatever the case may be. But we're the black family. The whole family.
Yeah, you got it. Well, thank you so much, and welcome to Rebuilding the Black Family. As Claremont already alluded to, thanks to those of you who tuned in last week for our first or inaugural program. Great feedback. Love the fact that so many of you tuned in at the first program, and thanks for telling your friends and family and loved ones. Thanks for sharing, liking us on Facebook and Twitter, etc. So thank you very, very, very much. Really appreciate it. And thank you, Claremont, for being with me. Really appreciate your help. Thank you so much. All right.
My pleasure.
Now, let me get back to this because it's so important. You've been asked, and I've been asked, and others will ask it from time to time, the emphasis on black family. The fact is there are issues that are specific and unique to the black family. And so over time we want to address some of those things. And our whole purpose is empowering people and encouraging people. And we'll be discussing, like I said, the principles that are critical really to any family, but we're not ashamed of addressing the black family. We want to see, because the stronger we are individually, the better we are as a whole. And so in identifying the black family, we want to do our part in making sure we're the right encouragers, giving the right information, the right principles, so that we can be a stronger, we could say, component or part of the human family. And so thank you very, very much, Claremont, for joining me today. Now, did you want to, I guess, talk about some of the feedback we received?
Some of the feedbacks that we had from last week, folks, especially when it comes to singleness and the fact that a lot of people are saying, now I know why I'm single. I love that. When people come to you and say, now I know why I'm single, or I'm glad that I'm single. Some of us were born to be single. And some of us were not. We're not.
Well, there's got to be a special grace. But as you said that right after the program, I was privileged to speak to a lady, and she said, you know, I'm so glad I heard the program. She said she hadn't really heard anything like that before.
Right.
And she's not like she's, like, say, a teenager or in her early 20s, but a bit older. But she said this, which is really, really worth repeating. She said, you know, thank you so much for what you, Claremont, and yourself shared, because I realized I'm not even ready to be married. Now, she wants to be married, but she realized, being very honest, said, I'm not ready yet.
Yeah.
I thought that was quite interesting. So she came to a place of realizing, and she said, well, I don't even know myself yet. Now that really, so that struck a chord, and I believe that's where many of us are, and that's what we want to continue on today, is really defining what it means to be single. And let's think about it this way. You know, God created Adam single, and the last time I checked, no one was born married.
Absolutely.
No one was born married, right?
No.
And so everyone was born single, as a single unit. And so it's important that we understand what it means to be single. And so let me start off by that. You don't mind? I'll just
Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Now, you know, God said an amazing statement in Genesis 2:18. He says to Adam, it's not good for the man to be alone.
Right.
Alone. Now, if we're not careful, we'll read things that are not there. Notice God says, it's not good for the man to be alone. He did not say, it's not good for the man because he's lonely.
Right.
Two separate words.
Right. Absolutely.
So Adam was not lonely. He was
Just
alone.
He was just alone.
So now we need to look into what, well, when God says it's not good for you to be alone, when he said that, he was identifying that Adam was the only one of his kind.
Okay.
So let's say the lion had a lioness, the cheetah had another cheetah, right? The chimpanzee had another chimpanzee. So Adam, being the first and only one of his kind at that time, God was identifying, you know, it's not good for you to be alone. You know, as far as the first of the human race, you need someone else like you to have fellowship and companionship with.
Right.
And so that's important. So we could say this: the answer to being lonely is fellowship and companion with another human being. So we have lots of, and I think about it now, so we have a whole lot of people to choose from.
Correct.
You can be, so what I'm saying is, the answer for loneliness is not marriage. So we've got to really make sure.
Well, you know, it's funny that you say that. If I could just interject here. I many times I remember I remember seeing a couple that they just did not match on many levels. Just didn't match. And so I asked the question, like I normally do. I even asked myself the own question: why did you get married? And she says, because I didn't want to be alone. I didn't want to be lonely, right? I said, you could get a dog. And she said, dog is not the same. I said, so then you didn't marry because you're lonely. You married for something else. You see, I believe sometimes marriage is equated to being lonely, or you get, and in most cases, it's not the loneliness that makes us get married, especially those in Christendom. I got to look in the camera and say, those in Christendom, you don't get married because you're lonely. You're not truthful about why you're getting married. You get married for another reason that most of us find at a taboo we don't want to talk about. The elephant in the room. Don't let's mention it. But it's a fact. Even Paul himself said, if you know you're going to burn, get married. And many of us don't want to understand that that's the thing that drives us into marriage, as opposed to sitting back and think, well, I have a plan for my life. I have a goal in my life that I want to attain. And if I bring this other person into my life, would they fit for us to move along together? So we go after the other thing as opposed to the thing. And if truly we look at it, most of us are not lonely. Most of us are not lonely. It's another problem. So we call it loneliness. I don't want to be alone. Is it loneliness? Because you have so many things going on in your life. Because I remember hearing this, and I've actually felt it myself. You could have 100 people around you and still feel lonely. So is it truly loneliness?
Okay, so let's get into that.
Right.
So now, good point. Good segue here. So then when we talk about alone versus loneliness, so let's say identify being lonely then. Oftentimes that loneliness is this: you're identifying, or maybe not identifying, there's an emptiness.
Okay.
there's a lack of completeness. There's a lack of fulfillment that's in our own lives that hasn't been filled up.
Okay.
You see that? And so that's why now, because, and if we go that way, what happens is this. We're then trying to get someone to complete us. We're trying to get someone to feel something. So that's why now, because we've not emphasized, I'm just saying, most people, we weren't emphasized as far as, well, who are you? What's your identification? What makes you tick? What are your likes and dislikes? So let me focus a bit then. Let's go back on this, and we'll go back and forth on this loneliness versus being alone or single.
Right.
Okay, so God said, it's not good that you are just by yourself.
Right.
Now, Adam was complete. So I'm going to talk about what it means to be single. So when somebody's single, that means, when we talk about that, so for the sake of definition to our viewers and those who are listening, when we talk about single, it means you are whole. You are complete. Okay, you are special. You are unique. So it's this sense that you have, that I'm going to keep repeating myself, you're whole, you're unique, you're complete. Now think about this. God never had to, or so we say this, Adam didn't look. He wasn't looking for a wife. He wasn't looking for someone to complete him. He had such a sense of completeness, such a sense of wholeness. God had to tell him, you know what, it's not good that you're alone. You're by yourself.
Right.
So what I'm saying is this. In himself, he was complete. He was whole. He had a sense of being unique. He wasn't looking for someone to fill him up.
Right.
And so my contention is this. Oftentimes, again, just because we weren't raised the way, or to the degree of understanding our own uniqueness, that needs to be done. So the singleness, that time frame of being single, what it was, I'm getting ahead of myself, the emphasis, what we're supposed to have when we're being single, is that you're working on yourself. You're working on being whole, on being complete, on being unique, in understanding how special you are, understanding your gifts and your abilities. Now, because Adam had no sense of emptiness, no sense of incompleteness, he knew who he was. So that's why I'm saying he was not alone. So now, you alluded to some things then. If we don't, so in this time of singleness, did I push something? That's why I meditated.
No, we good.
I'm good?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, so don't touch anything, Carl. So in this time when we're being single, what it means to be single. Let me say it again. Restart. To be single means you're unique, understanding that you are complete. You're whole. You have a sense of personal satisfaction. And so during the time of being single, it is a time of discovery, a time of self-discovery. And so in his fellowship with God, in understanding God, then what came out of his relationship with God for Adam was, he got all this inside of him. So he wasn't looking for it in anyone else. You got that?
Yeah,
and so now, let's go back and forth a little bit. If we're not careful, we're trying to get someone to be in us or to us or fill us up with their identity. And if we're not careful, that's why I believe in the world, people are going out into the world, and if you don't know who you are, you're easy prey for someone else to label you. Why? Because you need to know who you are. Now, let me go back another. Look at this. Matthew 22:39. I might have mentioned it last week because it mentioned it. It's a great statement. Jesus says this. Love the Lord your God with what? All your heart, all your soul, all your mind, all your strength. But then the next one he says, the second commandment is like unto it. He says, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Now think about this. I was reading that some time ago. I realized, well, how can you love someone else, he was saying, if you don't love yourself? Now think about that. Now that's a whole lot in there that I think sometime maybe for a long time we overlooked.
Yes, right.
So
That's
it says this now. So loving yourself then means you have an understanding of yourself. You see that? You understand? So you know who you are, and you're so have such an understanding, such an appreciation of who you are that you love yourself. Now this is not egotism. You know, it's not arrogance, it's not pride, but it's a healthy understanding and appreciation of yourself. And I'm saying this, no one can give that to you. No other human being can give that to you. And I think part of it is this. Because we've looked at Christianity as a religion, that's been part of our challenge. And so we've looked at it as a system of do's and don'ts.
Right.
We've looked at it as somewhere we go maybe on a Sunday to kind of feel happy and to get an emotional high, to get another fix. We say that's not what it was. It was God saying, I want you to know me. I want you to know how much I love you, how much I care about you. The Bible was supposed to be words given to us by God to help us to understand who He is to us, who we are to Him, and in that process helping us to understand who we are. And think about this. Psalm 139:14. David says this. He says, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, or miraculously made. Now think about this, Claremont. Here's a man saying this. He says, and my soul knows it. So his soul, his inner being, he had understanding, he had an awareness of who he is.
Right.
And so we're saying in this time of singleness, you're supposed to be working on that. Get into that place where your soul knows who you are. And so if we're empty, then what's happening? We're operating out of a place of desperation. So in singleness was the time not to be looking at somebody else, not to be looking for someone else, but it was supposed to be a time where you are looking between you, you're looking at God, you're looking at yourself, and you're understanding and you're growing in an awareness of who you are in Christ, what you possess in Christ, what you can do in Christ. And so there's a sense where you feel full on the inside. You know who you are. See that? Now, so when you know who you are, you really can't be abused. You really won't tolerate being condemned and oppressed. Why? Because you're so full of your own identity on the inside. You know who you are. There's a security that comes with it. I'm telling you, there's a great joy in that too. There's no desperation.
So then for those folks that too who actually feel that they, especially when someone says, I know who I am, it's not a cockiness, or it's not a case of being overconfident. It's just a case of saying, hey, I know who I am. And because I know who I am, I'm not going to allow you to take advantage.
That's right.
Gotcha.
Yeah. There's a sense of security.
It's a completely different thing between being cocky and arrogance.
Oh, yeah, it's completely different. No, usually, let's say, well, arrogance is someone who's trying to be something. They don't really know who they are. Or an arrogance is someone, when you're arrogant, you'll be more likely to put someone else down. You'll put someone else down. And so you delight in putting someone else down to make yourself go higher.
Right.
Well, no, when the person who's truly confident, they don't need to put someone down to be higher themselves. Why? They know who they are.
Exactly.
And in fact, in this sense, when you know who you are, you're whole, you're complete, there's a certain awareness of being special and unique. Well, guess what? You delight in helping others be who they are. Why? Because you don't get off on trying to put someone else down. You're a complete person.
I like that piece. You see, you delight in helping others being who they are. So by the time you come to marriage,
that's it.
There
it is.
You got it right
That's
there.
it.
You got it right there.
Yeah, you're a whole. So now, remember, going back to this now.
Yeah.
So you're a whole person looking for another whole person. Or you're better than able to say, when you're whole, again, complete, have a sense of being special, unique, all that kind of stuff's going on, then you're better than for God, or in a position, I could say, for God to present to you another whole person.
Awesome.
To choose.
Awesome. Because I know sometimes we find ourselves in situations where, just this week actually, at the ending of last week, someone was saying they're looking for someone who can help to complete them. And I looked at them and says, did you listen to our show on Tuesday? No, I missed it. So you should next Tuesday. Because you'd realize that you're not looking for somebody to complete you. That's God's job, to complete you. But you're looking for somebody who can walk with you.
There you go. Now, you see what you just said. I like the words you just used. You just said, because I think it bears repetition, you just said, only God can complete you.
Yeah.
See, that's it.
Yeah.
That's excellent. That's really well said. And then the other person, if we go scripturally, we won't miss it. God said, I'm going to find someone, a help meet for you. That word help meet means suitable.
Right.
Compatible.
Oh, man.
Not to complete you.
We're getting at a different topic
right
there.
You're supposed to be. So that it's someone who can come alongside you.
Yeah.
So then we could say it's a co-equal. Right? A co-equal.
Yeah.
Not a half person.
No.
So
Yeah.
that's where now, so we said this, sorry to cut you real quick there, but the thing is this, because we've not emphasized on what it really means to be single, we've not spent enough time on that, then I think invariably what's happened is this, we've become very empty or half-empty people, and we've become, that's where a lot of that desperateness comes out. Think about this, when you're full, you're not desperate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's so
You're
true.
not desperate. You're not looking for someone. So again, if you don't major on being complete, whole, special, unique, I believe you are a victim in the making. You could be potentially you could be a victim in the making. Why? You've not focused on job one, which is to make sure you are whole, complete, special, unique, and you have this sense, it's inside you, and your mind is full of this uniqueness.
I like that.
Thank you.
You know what? I'm sitting here and thinking, we're not doing the marriage counseling thing. That's not what we're doing right here, because I know a lot of people could run off on that angle. But it's a good way of thinking if you're planning or would like to be married or trying to get married, to first of all learn how to be single.
That's it.
Learn to be fulfilled in yourself of being single and not necessarily looking for someone else to complete you. I remember this growing up. My mother said to us as boys, learn how to cook and clean, because you don't know who you're going to get. They may make a mess of your place and you got to live in that mess and you can't. But what my mom indirectly was doing is teaching us how to be single.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Because most guys don't want to learn how to cook and clean because mama do it for them, or if they have sisters do it for them, and they're just looking for a wife who can also do that. So they have to look for somebody to complete them. But if you know how to cook, clean, and take care of yourself and that kind of stuff, you're not looking for a completion. You're looking for a mate who can walk with you.
Good. You know what? Let's move on to what you just said. Let's get into that then. Because you're talking about using that singleness to prepare.
Yeah.
And your mom was helping you to stand on your own 2 feet and be a truly whole single person. You said something earlier, though, maybe the first 5 minutes or so. You talked about people are not necessarily lonely, but they're looking for certain things.
Right.
I'm not saying it correctly. But or they got married or got hooked up with someone for a certain reason. Well,
Right.
let's use this. You mentioned then a lot of people got married for sex.
Yes.
Well, as the believer, since you mentioned, you brought
yeah,
it up.
that's
So
okay.
I'm
That's
gonna
all right.
touch
That's
it.
all right.
We'll
That's
get on
okay.
it and get off it real quick. But think about this then. The thing is this. Let's say you talked about that scripture, better to marry than to burn. But the thing is this. In your singleness, we're talking about preparing now and what that singleness time frame was supposed to be used for.
Correct.
You used the example of getting ready to cook and do certain things yourself, wash your own clothes and all that kind of stuff, right, as a man.
Right.
Well, the thing is this, in your singleness was the time when you're supposed to master the control of your sexual desires. See that? Now think. So people have used that as an excuse. Well, put it this way then. Let's use it. I'm not saying this is all the time. Now, if you've not mastered then your sexual urges and control and desires and passions as a single person, I'm just asking now, if it's not controlled there, isn't it therefore a great possibility it might not be controlled? I'm not saying it necessarily, but it might not be controlled even in marriage. Now, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that's always the case, but that's why then, because we've not paid attention to and not really knowing the full purpose of this time of being single, we've misused it.
Right.
Or we didn't use it correctly. So let me say it again, just repeating myself. So in the time of singleness is when I should have mastered my sexual urges, my passions. I should control that.
Right.
So that when I do get married, guess what? I'm married to a woman, beautiful woman. Now, it's easier then to control it. The thing is this, one of the reasons we've got a whole lot of problems, even in Christian marriages, in the sexual area, is because men and women never control their passions and desires as single people. So then you get into trouble, you're open for a lot of problems later on, because just because you got married, it doesn't mean that it's going to automatically control those desires for you.
Correct.
The institution is going to control it for you.
Right.
Marriage is not going to control it for you if you don't make the decision to control it.
True.
So what better time than to use your singleness to control it?
Okay, here's an. I like.
All
it.
right, we'll
I
get
like.
off of that.
Oh no! Don't go too fast. I know people don't like to talk about this. Now,
Well, that's real life. And
yeah,
so we got to talk about
yeah.
it. Right?
The thing is, I just recently, what were we, Tuesday? I think over the
Tuesday,
weekend.
yeah.
Yeah. Over the weekend, I had a conversation pertaining to the same sexual thing as a single person. Even though you control, you learn how to control. But I heard a story, and I think this is what Christendom or the Christian community does to us as a people. Curiosity. We used to say back home, curiosity kills the cat. Curiosity is a thing about the human being. The human curiosity is a driving force. We're curious about what's on the moon. We're curious about what's in outer space. We're curious about what's below the ground. We're curious what's in your brain. We're curious of what is inside of you. So this story was told to me as a child growing up. I heard it in church. My Sunday school teacher at the time, and she said she had a different twist to it though. She said the mother was leaving, and she had this bowl covered down on the table. My children tell me I always have stories. She had this bowl down on the table, and she said to the children, "Whatever you do, do not
Don't touch it.
touch that bowl."
Well, as soon as you got the door, they don't touch it.
Right? No.
Did it?
But it built a curiosity.
Okay, still,
My thing is, had she not said anything, it wouldn't have been a focal point.
yeah.
So she brought attention to it, and now all of a sudden they're
I
like,
got you.
they want to know what's under there. Why mom don't want us to touch this bowl?
Got
So the little young man, now curious as you could be, he's trying to figure out how we can know what's underneath without
Without opening it.
lifting up this bowl. So they tried all manner of things. So finally, one of them said, "Let's just take a little peek." And the little peek was just enough to let what out under the bowl. And the little peek, he realized that it was a bird, and of course he lifted it, flutters, and out it went. Right. They tried all their best to do to catch this bird, and they could not catch this bird. But the bird was trained by mom, because the bird went outside and sit on the porch. Mom came home, got the bird, put the bird back up, and the bowl is still covered down. Mom says, "Did you touch the bowl?" "No, we didn't." "See, it's still covered down." Mom said, "You sure you didn't touch the bowl?" "No, we didn't." So she brought the bird in. So how come he's in his cage? Because he went back into his cage. And I keep asking myself, they talk about, it's the same thing with Adam and Eve. That's what the teacher's talking about. That's Adam and Eve, the curiosity of wanting to know what's going on. And I said to myself, in Christendom, that is the first thing as a young person, especially if male and female are come together to be friends, it's the first thing they tell you. Your curiosity must be rising, because at the same time another thing is happening to you. Your body is growing, and all kinds of new feelings are coming up, all kinds of emotions are hitting you now. And I mean, in these early days, I mean, from about 16 or so, you can hear where the what you call it, the interest of the children from 5, 6, 7 years old now, by what they visually see, is now affecting them. Right? So the curiosity is building. So really and truly, it's harder now than then in our age group in terms of control, because there's so many things. Like we see in sex is freedom, you know, freedom of expressing yourself. It's no longer looked upon as out of being sinful. It's a freedom thing, you know. But nobody talks about the lies, the deceitfulness, the covetousness, the envying of one another, the hatefulness that we have in our hearts for people. No Christian focus, and we focus on that first thing is the sexual thing, which takes away from me, as far as I'm concerned, the beauty and the sanctity of sex in marriage. That could become such a thing as being overwhelmingly beautiful to enjoy, because I think, as I said to somebody, I'm not 100% sure about this, that's about the only thing that God has given to man as pleasure to enjoy immensely without killing ourselves. because every other thing that we do as a sport to enjoy has some kind of deficiency, whether it's sports, whether it's anything, it messes with you physically. That's the only thing that I think that God has given to man to enjoy that don't really kill us. So I'm wondering, what is it that the enemy has used in our singleness to create that curiosity that what is it? And then we get to find, oh, so we no longer control, we go out of control. Are you following what I'm saying?
I get you.
So
Yeah.
how do we twist that?
Well, let me say this way. I'm not saying it's going to completely answer this, but there was something there. I guess we weren't planning to go this direction,
no.
but let's go. The thing is this. Maybe I'm taking a different direction the way I hear it. The area of sex has been magnified for this. One of the main reasons is this. If you can get young people, let's say now 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, you get them being sexually active, and also if you get children having children, then what have you interrupted? You've interrupted the singleness process. So then you've interrupted this process whereby they're supposed to know who they are. They're supposed to get this sense of wholeness and completeness, of being special and being unique.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
That is completely interrupted. So you got to understand, Satan's strategy is, like I said before, he's crazy, but he's still a genius at the same time. There's a strategy. If you've got children, young kids, and even teenagers having children, and they're not prepared for that, I tell young people, the thing is this: you're not ready for that relationship. You're just not. Why? You're not ready for that measure of commitment.
I said that to somebody, a young teenager, and they responded to me, and I really didn't have an answer. All I said was, but God chose her, because they come back to Mary they said, well, wasn't Mary around 16 when she had Jesus? I said, but you notice the difference. Mary didn't engage sexually. Exactly. That was God's thing. But she was going to get married at that age, wasn't she? I'm like,
oh, but the thing is this. Let's get back to that.
Right. That's what I want you to deal
with. Think
with.
about this, though. The thing is understanding. Sometimes it's not so much the age, it's understanding.
Okay.
Now, what we understand in, listen to Mary's response. She intelligently discusses with the angel who comes to her. And she says, well, how can this be? Because he tells her now, you're the one, you're highly favored by God. You're going to give birth to the Messiah. And she says, well, how's that going to be? How's that going to be? She's thinking, how's this going to be? You know, since I've never been with a man. Now, she goes through that process. Well, but then she says this, be it to me according to your word. She actually shows this then, I'm ready to take on the responsibility to not just to be married, but also to be the mother of the Son of God. This was not a frivolous thing with her. So she exhibited a certain maturity of mind. Now the fact is this: there are 40-year-olds who are still functioning like teenagers. It's a matter of understanding. So that's what we're saying. There's some young people, you've met some young people who are, let's say, 19, 20, and their maturity, their sense of being complete and whole is very, very high and very well developed. Again, going back to what we're saying here, the main thing is this, is that what we're supposed to be focusing on is our singleness and developing. And so we could say sex and those things and lust and promiscuity, those are distractions to take you away from developing. You see? So that was never supposed to be the major. Never.
Right.
Satan's heightened it in our community. Why? It's a distraction. To get why? If you get too focused on that, then you're not focusing on understanding what are your gifts, what are your abilities, who are you. You see that? So it has its place, but it's been magnified so that it's become the entire world instead of just a component, a facet of your human existence.
We can take a quick break. We'll be right back.
You are listening to Streamin' Praise Radio, Toronto's #1 internet gospel radio station. Streamin' Praise Radio is owned and operated by Second Chance Productions. Streamin' Praise Radio is streaming live at www.2npraise.com.
Streamin' Praise Radio is owned and operated by
Communicating the gospel through music and spoken word via the internet. Streaming Praise Radio.
You are listening to Streaming Praise Radio, Toronto's #1 internet gospel radio station. Streaming Praise Radio is owned and operated by Second Chance Productions. Streaming Praise Radio is streaming live at www.2ndchancepro.com. Streaming Praise Radio is broadcast in English at 33 kilobytes per second, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Streaming Praise Radio is your taste of praise. Coming to you live 24 hours, 7 days a week. You are listening to Streaming Praise Radio, first internet Christian broadcasting station operating in Toronto, Canada. You are listening to Streaming Praise Radio.
Yes, and we're back. We continue with singleness. Singleness. Learning to be single and loving it.
All right, that's right. I like that. Being single and loving it. In fact, that's the title of a series I did at our church called Being Single and Loving It, and that's available for more on this topic. Please go to foundationforlife.ca for that and other life-building resources. Claremont, you were talking and you mentioned some great points. Good to have you.
Thank you so much.
But the thing is this. In the time of singleness is when you are supposed to understand and get a greater awareness of who you are, greater understanding of your goals, your vision, your purpose in life, the development of yourself. It's not just physically but mentally. So all these things are supposed to be developing in our lives. And we could say if it's not done, then we can be behind. You're losing time. For example, we had the NBA playoffs recently, and I'm glad the Warriors won. But anyway, no Cleveland haters out there. But anyway,
we're not going to go there.
But anyway, but the thing is this: if you notice, these people, these athletes, they're doing things that look tremendous to us. They just look out of this world to us in what they're able to accomplish. But the fact is this: they've spent so many years doing these things. They were practicing and working out when we're sleeping.
Right. So true.
And so this is years and years and years. And so now in this short time frame of these different events or finals, they're putting on display. But the fact is, it was years of development. So that's what we're saying here. In your singleness was supposed to be the time where you get with God, because only the manufacturer knows the creation. Where you're getting together with God, and through that relationship with Him, Him speaking to your heart, you speaking to Him, Him revealing His word to your heart by the Holy Spirit, then you get to see who you really are. No one knows you better than God. That's why we've got to get out of this religion mentality and get into a real relationship with God. He knows you. He wants to speak to your heart. He will affirm you and help you and show you that this is what I've called you to do. This is your purpose in life. And so you get out. So when you're full on the inside, then it will have expression on the outside. You're able to meet the world and face the world with a certain confidence. Why? You know who you are, and you're not looking for someone's affirmation on the outside to make you be somebody.
If I can ask you this question, we're talking about singleness. We're talking about being single. We're talking about being firm in your singleness as to who you are. Can a person who is already married, in their marriage for 20, 30 years, learn how to be single?
That's a great question. I got you. I know where you're going on that. The thing is this. One of the things I emphasize is this. Even, let's say I'm married, you're married. The thing is this. You're still an individual.
Correct.
And so we're no one's perfect. I haven't met the perfect person. You think you come close? No, you don't.
No, I ain't even close, man.
Well, me too. But the thing is
the worst.
But the thing is this. What I'm saying is this, though, is that you're still an individual.
Right.
And so because none of us are perfect, then I'm supposed to still be working on my singleness.
Okay.
Do you see that?
All right.
So, so I'm supposed to be working on that in my relationship with God. And so I'll become a better person. So just because you stop being single physically, become a married person, you're still a single person. You see what I'm saying? You're still an individual.
Right.
And so I think the more both parties realize that, is the less they'll yield to the temptation of controlling the other. You see that?
So
that
the individuality.
because you still have a relationship with God.
Correct.
Right? You're still an individual, son of God. And so the thing is this, the more you develop as an individual, the more you'll be aware of the other. Let me give you an example. I was, hopefully my wife isn't watching this, but, but I'm going to tell you this. She's an excellent person. She knows who she is. And you know that sometimes, let me go off into this other area though. You ever heard of the strong black woman?
Yes, right? I heard that.
That's probably for another program. But you know what? So I'm married to what some people would call a strong black woman. But the thing what we've got to be careful of is this. The more you're aware of what I'm talking about, this singleness, understanding, because if you've got to know who you are, the more you're aware of who you are, I believe, the better you're able to understand another person, particularly a strong person. I'm going to give you an example. I was doing something in the lawn on the weekend, and we fired. I was going to say my wife fired two landscapers. I fired one, so she's up like just because they didn't, they cut corners and whatever. Anyway, I was thinking, she knows exactly what she wants, and I was thinking even in terms of the lawn, she was insisting, Carl, this is what I want. Now, if you're not careful, where a strong woman has to be careful, if she's not careful, she can become a nagger, and no man likes a woman who's nagging. But where I think men miss it is this. They misinterpret that woman's understanding of who she is and what she wants. So that come across as her being too strong. No, the more you realize when you know who you are. Now, you're not going to allow her to impose and push you around, but the thing is this. Because I'm stronger on the inside, I'm better able to appreciate, you know what, I was doing something along, I said, you know what, she knows what she wants. So where the insistence sometimes comes is because of that. She knows what she wants. And so I think there was this. So women have to know so that they're not pushed down, and men, in order to work with strong women, then when a woman knows who she is, knows what she wants in life, knows where she's going in life, well, guess what? That causes men to step up their game. You better know who you are.
Or you'll feel that she's being a strong black woman.
There you go. But then here's another. I'm going to touch out live things like this. I thought about this. Sometimes I get inspiration. Sometimes when I'm shaving or brushing my teeth. This is one of them. The strong black woman. Guess what she's like?
What?
Remember this. I should have had this. Let's bring it in next week. A caramel. A caramel. Those bars of chocolate?
Caramel chocolate?
Yeah, and it has the soft stuff in the inside.
Yeah.
You got what I'm saying, right? That chocolate?
I got you, yeah.
I'll try to bring. I should have brought one today, but I didn't know we were going to talk about this. But think about this. So what happens is this: the strong black woman knows who she is. So oftentimes her expression is misinterpreted because it's so strong. Now, the strength of her communication is just her exhibiting what she wants. It's knowing who she is, where she's going, what she wants. Now, what happens is this. We're thinking, and we interpret that strength, that she's just hard all the way through. Guess what? No. That's the exterior. Now, some of that came because of her upbringing.
Right.
Some of it came because she was surrounded by circumstance, not all of it, where she didn't want to become oppressed. She didn't want to become a victim. So she developed certain mechanisms and defense things to make sure she's never a victim. Others of it is just a woman who knows who she is. Again, knows who she is, knows her identity, knows what she wants, knows where she's going. But guess what on the inside?
The caramel, the softness, the
there
sweetness.
You go.
So
guess what happens? We respond
to the hard shell.
Yeah.
You just have to bite through the hard shell.
No. I got it. No, that's not what. Listen, that's what he said. Okay. No, what I was going to get to is this.
Actually, though, go ahead. I'll
what I was going to say is this. Sorry to interrupt you, man. But listen, what I was going to say is this: is that if you're not careful, you don't realize that was like you said it pretty well. That's not the entire woman.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of softness on the inside, and what happens we have to not just hear and respond to the outside,
yeah.
but we've got to realize and see, you know what, on the inside, there's a lot of softness. And if we're not careful, we've got to be gentle and speak to that gentleness on the inside, that softness
just on the
inside. You see that? So we've got to see it. We've got to see past this, the hard shell, because sometimes it can get to us. It can get to our ego as a man. But the thing is this, if we understand that, I don't know if I'm saying it clear enough, if we can understand that she is caramel.
Yep.
Caramel bar. Isn't that a good picture?
Yeah.
Anyway, I like that. It does a lot for
But
me.
here's
Anyway.
the thing, though.
Go
Back to the caramel, the definition of the caramel. When I say you have to just bite through it, and you get to the soft side. And if you ever have a caramel bar, it's very chewy on the inside. It's long-lasting, and that taste lingers a little long. I had a couple of caramel bars myself, right? So I know what it's like when you chew it. But here's the thing. I remember watching, I think it was a program I was watching, and somebody said, oh, she's behaving like a black woman, right? And I said, no, she's behaving like a woman.
Good, yeah.
Because we say a strong black woman just because there's so many negatives against a black woman in today's society, especially in North American, European society, not so much in the Caribbean. There's so much negativity towards them, so they develop a certain attitude and behavior just to show themselves, which sometimes is not always a positive thing, right? But nevertheless, the strong black woman that we consider the strong black woman is one who's educated, know what she's about, know what she wants, know what she's going after, that kind of stuff. And then you have the other women who do the same, and then they claim to be, or somebody would claim to say, oh, you're behaving like the strong black woman. But no, it's a woman, period, who knows what she wants. Because in every community or in every nation, so to speak, women go through some real terrible things that they have to overcome. And in some nations, they just remain subservient, and they don't know how to develop that outer shell. But as this older friend of mine once told me, he says, slavery brought that out of us. Because we went through slavery, and that was passed on, and we saw how we had to fight. And most of the times, the strong black woman would fight to bring one of her male slaves out of slavery, so to speak. Harriet Tubman, for example, right? So in looking at that, when we give this definition of a strong black woman, it doesn't, folks, doesn't only relate to black women only. It relates to women across the world.
But you know what? I think when you just said that, where often the stereotypes, and I think when we say now rebuilding the black family, why I'm not ashamed to call it that is this: we have to destroy and debunk and just completely eliminate a lot of these stereotypes. Because remember, if stereotypes are believed, then that becomes reality. People live out those stereotypes. So how is it then someone can say, well, a black woman is acting a certain way, and they'll say that's a strong black woman?
Right.
Well, how come someone doesn't say that when the same traits and characteristics are demonstrated by a white woman, why don't they say that's a strong, that's just, and it's normally a derogatory expression, right? How come it's not said to that particular color person? You see what I'm saying? So what I'm saying, we've got to come at and the thing is this, the worst thing is this, is when you believe it yourself.
Exactly.
So if the black man, if the black woman starts believing these things about themselves, then guess what? Again, you start to look at yourself in a negative light. And then, of course, we'll treat one another according to what we believe about one another. Does that make so that that's just a wild black woman. So anyone who's strong, anyone who knows who they are, we'll put them in the same category. Now, of course, that's not to minimize someone who's just plain rude.
Yes. No.
We're not talking about that. But I'm trying to say at the same time, we don't want to minimize that. That's something that should be addressed and acknowledged as being someone who's rude and has no etiquette and is just a rude, rebellious person. That's another thing altogether. But I think it's really important to really underscore some of the things you've been saying.
I was looking at what you call a show where this comedian actually was talking about this Japanese woman that he saw at the airport, and he showed a little clip of it. The Japanese woman at the airport, and she was pretty much just so you see some black women how they move their head and so forth. She was doing the same thing while talking to the man she was with, and she's like putting him in his place with the head movement, and he says, "Man, she got some black, or she be hanging with some black people." But I'm thinking, no, you can't say that. It's just, here's a woman who's really, in their community and in their society, this is something that they have to face on a daily level, in being subservient to the man. So she's just being herself, so to speak, and we didn't know how to deal with it or how to handle it, so we say that she's being like a strong black woman.
Now, you notice, though, what we did, though, is this. We took, then, what was seen as a negative trait in another culture or person, and so what we did by doing that, we're saying, well, that's not how they normally are.
Right.
See that? This is an aberration. This is someone, that's not the way they normally are. So what you're really saying, well, this is how black women are.
Right.
Right? They're rude. They're not good to be around. Well, if you believe that, then what are we going to be thinking about ourselves? What are we going to be thinking about black women? But again, going back to this thing, but if we realize, no, a lot of that is them knowing who they are, and we've got to allow them to be who they are and recognize that's not the full totality of their personality.
Right.
They're hard on the outside. They're not the nice caramel. Look beautiful on the outside, a lot of strength on the outside, but a lot of sweetness on the inside. I think that's pretty good.
Yeah. That's pretty good.
All right.
That's how it goes, actually. We're coming up to almost to the end of our show, and I really want to thank you guys for locking in, for those of you locked in, and I know some of you would have loved to make commentaries or come and say something on air while we're on air. For some reason, just a minute ago, we got a little bit disconnected, and I'm trying to reconnect you back to the Facebook, as I think we're still there. However, if you choose to, and you want to be a part of this conversation, you're listening to us via air as opposed to via the Facebook at this point, I want to say to you, feel free to call us at 905-566. We just have about 7 minutes to go. 566-1826. 905-566-1826. And you can join the conversation. You can, make any commentary or observation or whatever it is that is going through your heart and mind, and you want to say, "Hey, Pastor Carl, I have a question for you." I know he can answer them for you. So, as we're coming down, winding down, I want to say to you guys, we want to thank you for joining us again. And as I'll try to link you back to the Facebook, if you're still listening to us, we're going to bring you back into Facebook. But in the meantime, I'll let Pastor Carl continue with what he has left for us right this moment.
Well, again, like Claremont said, we do appreciate you tuning in and also telling your friends and families about this program, because we do look to address a number of things that will really help us to build strong, successful, and productive families. But this area of singleness, I'm not sure if might go into another topic next week, but it's really important, and I trust you do find it important. And let us know specifically how it's spoken to you. That hearing Claremont and myself talk about what it means to be single, let us know how that spoke to you. Let us know how it's made an impression on you, as it caused you to think a certain way, or maybe bring up certain things in your life that you need to address or believe you need to address. And so, we want to be encouragers to you. We want to let you know you can be what God's called you to be. And but a lot of that is understanding who you are, and we want to encourage that relationship that God has with you, or that you have with God, and really grow in that relationship with Him. But let me say this as we close. We said this is the only way you can really know who you are to the fullness of it is knowing who God is. And that's why Jesus came into the world. He came to introduce a religion. He came to bring life, to give us life, to get us back in connection with God as our Heavenly Father, and through our relationship and communion with Him, through the Word and by the help of the Holy Spirit, is helping you to know who you are. So love God, with all your heart and all your soul. Go after Him. In your singleness is the time to give your very best to God. If you're a single person, particularly if you're a young person, in that area of 14 to 30 or thereabouts, really this is the time to give your all to God. Be really committed. Give Him everything. Give Him your heart, your soul, your mind, your body. Be sold out to Him and allow Him to form your thoughts. Help Him to speak to your values. Allow Him to speak to the direction of your life. I'm telling you, life will be a blast. You'll enjoy your singleness with tremendous joy because that's His plan. He wants you to have a wonderful life. In fact, Jesus said, I came that you might have life and have it more abundantly. And so that's why we're here, to really encourage you to pursue God's best, pursue His best for your life. And so as a single person, I want to close by saying this: emphasize your, let's say, understand your vision, your goals, where you're going, your wholeness. Don't yield to the pressures of what other people are doing. Get to know who you are. Set high standards. Keep those standards very high, and I believe you'll experience the very best in your life.
Absolutely true. I'm hoping that we're back online. I think we're somewhere there.
Technical difficulties?
Actually, it's a Facebook thing.
Okay.
It's just a Facebook thing. It has nothing to do with us. But we're reconnected, I think, and we're thanking God for that. But as we're winding down, just have about 3 minutes left. We want to thank you guys for locking into us, and thank you for being a part of this program. Feel free to send us your emails. What email should we send it to? We can use our own personal emails, but I would prefer if you send it to
for my email,
yeah.
info@foundationforlife.ca. So info@foundationforlife.ca. That would be good for me.
Right. And also, if you don't remember that for some reason, it is always easy to remember Streaming Praise Radio. As info@Streaming Praise Radio. It will come straight to the same into the same area, and we'll send it on to Pastor Carl. We can deal with topics that you want us to deal with. Also, we will let our listeners know that next week we're going to have a bang on time.
All right, we sure will.
A time where we can say that we are going to explore more than you actually think in your singleness, because people think, as you're single, I need to get married. No. And for those of you who are already married, you're still single.
All right.
You're still single. You're still single. Don't feel it is over. Life is not over. Somebody we used to make the joke years ago. You're good until you get married. After you get married, life is over. It's done. No, man. You. This is where.
But you see, that's a misunderstanding of life again.
Life
see
again.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so once you're married and you're having a wonderful time in your marriage, you're still being single. God will still call you to do so many things. I'm doing Streaming Praise Radio. My wife is doing her own thing. That kind of stuff. But the thing is that you have to remember that once you are alive, you're born, you're here. There's a purpose in you that you have to fulfill.
That's right.
And until next time, join Pastor Carl and myself, and we continue to bring you rebuilding the black family.
All right.